UAE has one of the largest economies in the world and is one of the richest countries in the world, as well as the dominant financial force in the Arabian Peninsula. The milestones this nation reaches each year as the nursery of innumerable brilliant investors and entrepreneurs astound everyone with their value. But before we start with our episode, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Since the UAE is one of the richest nations in the world in terms of crude oil, petroleum, and products derived from petroleum, trading is one of the most significant sectors there. The top two most imported goods into the UAE are food and machinery and equipment. The UAE imports a large number of goods overall. According to recent studies, the United Arab Emirates is the world's 25th largest exporter. According to the Economic Complexity Index, the UAE also boasts one of the world's most complex economies, ECI. The UAE government has been successful in luring a sizable number of foreign companies looking for development and expansion prospects in the Middle East thanks to a highly successful economic diversification plan. The most popular goods imported and exported from Dubai. Dubai's list of imported and exported goods includes the following. The majority of the UAE's exports are crude and refined petroleum, along with gold, diamonds, and other types of jewelry. Dubai also buys a lot of cars and other transportation equipment, as well as broadcasting and media equipment from other nations. Figures for Dubai's imports and exports. The most popular export from the United Arab Emirates is petroleum, which, according to recent figures, generates an annual economic contribution of almost $100 billion USD from both crude and refined petroleum. More than 60% of the overall exports of the nation are made up of petroleum-based goods. Gold, aluminum, and other metals are successfully exported by Dubai and the other Emirates, nevertheless. The most frequently imported goods by businesses in Dubai are autos, jewels, and gold. Japan, India, Singapore, Thailand, and South Korea are the UAE's top trade partners. When it comes to exports, Dubai also trades with the United States, the United Kingdom, and Germany. China is the UAE's biggest significant import ally, followed by Japan and India. Dubai's top trading partners in Europe, besides the UK and Germany, are France and Italy. Middle Eastern logistics are centered in Dubai. The ability to import and export goods through sophisticated facilities set up in the emirate is one of the primary factors contributing to Dubai's trading industry's rapid development. Dubai has grown to be one of the most significant logistics centers in the Middle East. Imported goods are brought into the United Arab Emirates through Dubai's airports and maritime ports, which have terminals designed for handling enormous quantities of goods. Due to its geographic position, the UAE can serve as a re-export hub for nearby nations. Dubai has succeeded in becoming one of the most significant trading hubs in the Middle East because to its sophisticated infrastructure, which facilitates the transfer of commodities. The government has also made significant investments to support the growth of this sector. The UAE, which derives its riches from a variety of industries and fields, has a large number of important trading partners, which enhances its worth. Let's examine a few of these partners in more detail. 5. Germany. Germany, a global leader in new developments and inventions, is one of the most significant exporters and financial contributors to the UAE. These two countries have a close trading relationship, and they consistently strive for improvement. Trade between these nations typically consists of metals, machinery, electronics, chemicals, and other things that help themselves at every opportunity. 4. The United Kingdom. Despite a rocky history between the two nations, their economic collaboration continues to grow every year. These nations' major exports to one another's economies are food items, minor machinery, transportation equipment, precious metals, and gold. 3. The United States of America. The USA continues to flourish and prosper as a financial powerhouse in the entire world, holding a top spot in both United Arab Emirates imports and exports. They look forward to a bright future together as their bilateral relations continue to improve. The US also sells a significant amount of mineral products, which are primarily made of machinery, electricity, transportation, and chemical equipment. 2. India. India is one of the UAE's top trading partners, and the two countries have a supply line and simple means of transit for one another, which greatly enhances the value of their relationship. The bilateral connections between these nations, which are greatly influenced by each country's relationship with the other, are anticipated to get better in the next years. Precious metals, textiles, food, and petroleum make up the majority of trade between the UAE and India, accounting for 11.7% of all trade in the UAE. 1. China. China is a significant trading partner of the United Arab Emirates, accounting for 13.9% of the UAE's total trade volume. These two nations are able to give each other the best due to their long-standing strong business ties. The main goods exchanged between these two nations are chemical products, a small amount of heavy machinery, textile, metal, and plastic goods. Important export partners for the UAE: petroleum, mineral fuels, precious metals, machinery for the transportation industry, and metals make up the majority of the primary services and goods that the UAE exports to other nations. The UAE supplies numerous Arab nations in addition to its import partners by exporting a large variety of goods. Some of the UAE's largest export partners are Saudi Arabia, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Japan, China, India, and Japan, all of which maintain a positive trade balance with the country. UAE should redefine success by achieving lofty objectives year after year. According to figures issued by the General Authority for Statistics, despite a decline in the Emirates' proportion of the kingdom's non-oil exports, the UAE remained the top destination for non-oil exports from Saudi Arabia in the first quarter. The General Authority for Statistics preliminary data shows that Saudi non-oil exports to the UAE, including re-exports, fell to 14.81% in the first quarter of this year from 14.87% the previous quarter. The UAE continued to hold the top spot in the first quarter for Saudi Arabian non-oil exports, followed by China and India. By the conclusion of Q1 2022, the UAE's non-oil foreign trade was worth $527.5 billion. While exports increased by almost 18% YoY by the end of Q1 22, reaching $91 billion, imports increased by 25% to $292 billion, while re-exports increased by 19% to $144 billion. China, India, Saudi Arabia, the US, Iraq, Switzerland, Turkey, and Japan were among the main trading partners of the UAE in Q1 2022, with considerable increase rates compared to the volume of commerce exchanged in Q1 21. Nearly $1.9 trillion in non-oil exports left the UAE in 2021, representing a 27% increase over 2020 and an 11% increase over 2019. Approximately $354 billion was the value of national non-oil exports, an increase of 33.3% from 2020 and 47.3% from 2019. Re-exports total value reached $521.3 billion, growing by 27.7% in comparison to 2020 and 1.6% in comparison to 2019. The country's imports increased in value by around $1 trillion in 2021, a rise of about 23.8% over 2020 and about 7% over 2019. China took the top spot as the UAE's top trading partner in 2021, making up 11.7% of all foreign commerce between the two nations. The value of non-oil commercial exchange between the two nations totaled $212 billion, up 27% from 2020 and 19.8% from 2019. Saudi Arabia came in second with a contribution of 6.6% and a value of $125 billion, while India came in second with a contribution of 8.7% and a value of $164.4 billion, respectively. Saudi Arabia's contribution increased by 20% from 2020 to 2021 and by 10.1% from 2019 to 2021. Iraq ranked fifth, ahead of the US in fourth place, whose trade with the UAE increased by 8.1% from 2020 to 2021. India became the leading buyer, taking in $50 billion from UAE exports, up 150% from 2020 and almost 100% from 2019. India accounted for 13.8% of the nation's total exports. Saudi Arabia surpassed China as the second largest buyer of UAE exports, contributing 10.7% of the nation's $38 billion in exports, growing by 48.6% compared to 2020 and by 22.4% compared to 2019. The UAE's international commerce has by far passed the stage of recovery from the COVID-19 impact on a worldwide scale and has entered an advanced stage of growth and prosperity, as it saw over 11% growth compared to the pre-pandemic stage, stated Abdullah bin Tuq al-Mahri, Minister of Economy. The overwhelmingly favorable results observed in all Emirates for import, export, and re-export operations point to a systematic and integrated growth supported by adaptable and highly effective trade policies and the building blocks of sustainable development. These results are driven by the launch of the projects of the 50 and the continuous efforts being made to enhance the UAE's position on the international trade map and ensure an attractive, vibrant trade environment that is open to the world and linked to a strong and diverse network of global supply chains, said Dr. Thani bin Ahmed Al-Ziyudi, Minister of State for Foreign Trade. These initiatives have established strong foundations for sustaining the expansion of the nation's international trade during the ensuing years. China, India, Saudi Arabia, the US, Iraq, Switzerland, Turkey, and Japan were among the main trading partners of the UAE in Q1 2022, with considerable increase rates compared to the volume of commerce exchanged in Q1 to 21. Saudi Arabia sold non-oil items of SR 11.52 billion, $3 billion, to the UAE in the first quarter of 2022, a decrease of state route 343 million from the fourth quarter of 2021. The decrease is partially attributable to a dip in exports of transport equipment, which in the first quarter of this year accounted for 27.54% of the UAE's share of Saudi exports. From State Route 4 billion in the fourth quarter of 2021 to SR 3.17 billion in the first quarter of this year, this product group's exports decreased. However, the kingdom saw a rise in its exports to the UAE of SR 330 million for machinery, SR 170 million for optical goods, and SR 99 million for pearls. Saudi Arabia's non-oil exports to China decreased from 13.26% in the previous quarter to 12.22% in the current quarter. The kingdom's non-oil exports to China decreased by SR 1.1 billion in the first quarter of 2022, totaling SR 9.51 billion. This decrease is mostly due to a decrease in the value of chemical product exports, which fell from SR 5.87 billion in the previous quarter to State Route 5 billion. Additionally, exports of transportation equipment and plastics decreased by a combined State Route 685 million. However, a $461 million increase in the value of basic metals transported to China in the first quarter of 2022 partially offset this reduction. With this, we conclude our episode. Thank you for watching.